Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Pointy Not Sharp. Today we're taking a look at a Seitengewehr 24T. Now, these started their lives as Czech VZ24 Bayonets. However, when Germany rolled into Czechoslovakia at the start of the Second World War, many of these were converted and then later purpose-made into this configuration for German use. Now, Seitengewehr stands for sidearm in German. 24 is the model of the rifle, which is odd because all of the other bayonet models are like 101, 102, 103, where the 24 is in line with the VZ24. And T is an abbreviation for Czechoslovakia in Germany. Now, these bayonets were made to fit 3 general rifles in German service during the Second World War. So they were made to fit the Carabiner 98K or the Car 98K. They're also obviously made to fit the VZ24, which in German service was the G24T, which is just a VZ24, just what they decided to call it. And finally, I've been told they will also fit the G33/40 carbine or carabiner, whatever you want to call it. Small numbers of those were made, and the VZ33, which is the rifle that those rifles was made from, had a shorter bayonet, so I've been told these will fit, but I don't know if they're designed specifically for it. Now, in Germany, sorry, not in Germany, in Czech Republic, these were made by 2 companies. So pre-war and the start of the war, they were made by CSV, or however you pronounce this, which is the Czechoslovakian Arms Factory Incorporated, now known as BRNO, so very, very well-known company. And then later in the war from, was it 42 to 43, they were made by Waffenfabrik, Braun, Werke. But we'll jump into the history, so I'll move this one to the side for the moment. In 1924, the Czechs made the VZ24 rifle. They started with the 22, which was short, then the 23, which was too long. They settled on the 24, which was just right. So, as you can see, it's pretty much the same as what we have up here, except most noticeably, it has a muzzle ring. Now, initially, these were in the white. This one is a post-war refurbished one under the Warsaw Pact, so it's very, very heavily blued. So, I'll put it away for now. Now, when the Germans rolled into Czechoslovakia, they had all of these fantastic VZ24 bayonets, like this one here. And they made a couple of minor modifications to them, and then entered them into their own official nomenclature as the Seitengewehr 24T. Now, the modifications that were made, you might be able to spot one of them, well, 2 of them straight away, they're reasonably obvious. But most noticeably, as you'll see here, the muzzle ring was deleted. So that was ground off, and we just have 2 ears, which is very typical of German bayonets. In the First World War, that's what most of them look like. The 8498s, the 9805, and the 98 all have those ears. It's very, very German, very stereotypical. They don't like muzzle rings. Now, the second modification is a blue was applied to it. So my understanding is initially they were in the white. So the white is just the white steel essentially, whether a blue is like a darkened finish, as you can see here. Obviously not as dark as the Soviet one I have here. The other modifications, serial numbers were added to the Ricasso. This one here does not have a serial number. I don't know what's going on with that. So potentially that was only a few of them, or I don't know. And finally, the scabbards were modified as well. So, here's our original scabbard. You'll note we have the spine of the blade for the throat, if I can get the lighting just right, please, sits on the right-hand side and it's retained by a rivet. Then we have our Seitengewehr 24, and you'll see they've flipped it to the other side, so now it's on the left and not the right, and it's no longer retained by a rivet, now it's retained by a screw on the left hand side. So when you put the blades in the scabbards, they're now facing opposite directions. If you're looking at, we'll call this, even though it doesn't have a muzzle ring, we'll say that's the muzzle ring. The muzzle ring would be on that side. So it's more noticeable when you look down at the pommels. We've got pommels facing other directions. We've got press button and the, whatever you call that, lock and lug. So those are the most noticeable differences. So that's the first batch. The first batch were modified from existing stock. Then in 1941 through until 1942, they actually started manufacturing these in this configuration. This one here is the first type, so this was modified from an existing VZ24. Second batch, virtually identical to what we have here. The only real difference is that they have Waffenarts on them. Waffenart is a German inspection mark from the Second World War. It's a little eagle with an inspection number underneath it. The inspection number relates to a specific inspection or inspector. There are a couple of numbers that are specifically associated with these. I can't remember them off the top of my head. Hopefully I've posted them down here. And yeah, these were only made for about a year or two, and there were about 115,000 of those ones made. I'd love to get one of those because I think Waffenarts are neat. I'm not really into the Third Reich stuff, but Waffenarts are cool. I love the whole inspection side of it and being able to track markings and things like that. I'm into that, so I like that. Now, the third and final type of this bayonet is, again, virtually identical, except they changed manufacturer. So, CSV, they went from manufacturing bayonets and rifles to making carabiner 98Ks for the Germans. They discontinued these completely. So production moved to Waffenfabrikbüro Werke, and they produced 137,000, and they're pretty much identical to what we have here, but they don't have the Czech manufacturing markings on them. So while the rest of them have our CSZ, you will not find that on the third type. What the third type have instead is a German letter code marking. If you're not familiar with German letter code markings, during the Second World War, Germany, well, leading up to the Second World War as well, Germany were trying to disguise where things were being manufactured. It's a bit of a deception plan. So instead of having a manufacturer's name on the ricasso of a blade, instead they would have a code unique for a manufacturer. And that was to disguise where they were being manufactured. And the letter code for Waffenfabrikbüro Werke was DOT, and that's what you'll find on the ricasso. Now, I'll quickly jump through the construction, then we'll cover off the markings, and that's pretty much all I have to say on these. They're pretty simple. So, just like a VZ24, if you see my previous video, it's got an inverted upside down blade, and that's a follow-on from the Mannlicher M95 bayonets that the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which Czechoslovakia was a part of in the First World War, used. So after the war, when they became their own country and they started designing their own weapons, they were already familiar with inverted blade, and that's what they adopted with their VZ22, 23, 24. Really short crossguard is, as previously discussed, wooden grips retained by screws, so you need a special tool to remove those. Now, like all of our Mauser bayonets, we have a clearance hole to clear debris that gets pushed by the cleaning rod all the way through the end of the handle to assist with cleaning. And we have our TO mortise. So the inverted T is for the bayonet lug, and the O underneath is for the cleaning rod. There's nothing too special about these. If you've seen one Mauser style bayonet, you've pretty much seen them all. Just got a ramped press catch. And I've already discussed what makes the scabbard interesting. It's just the reverse throat, and that is the wrong one. It's the reverse throat and the screw. I swapped them at some point there. Other than that, it's just a steel constructed scabbard with a ball finale and no drainage hole, so nothing too fancy there. Now, in terms of markings, I've pretty much covered them off already. There's not too much to say. If you want to know about all the markings of the original VZ24s, check out my last video. I went into that in depth. So this is the first type. This has the original Czech markings on it. We have, I'll start with the bayonet. So we have a CSZ here on the ricasso, if I can get that to play out. And underneath that, an X. So it's the manufacturer, and the X I'm not too sure about. I've been told they're possibly for types of units that they were issued to. I've also heard they're like production codes for years of manufacture. I don't really know. I can't remember. I didn't look too hard into it. It's not particularly relevant for today. That's more a VZ24 thing rather than a Seitengewehr 24T. And the other marking I have on this one is my manufacturer and property stamp down here, and that's an E with our line property stamp and 37 for year of manufacture. So it's got all of the correct check markings from before the war. Then down here on the scabbard, I actually have an interesting marking here on the scabbard. So we've got 30's year of manufacture, we've got our line, we've got a 12, I don't know what the hell that's about, I can't remember. And then we've got like a big 8 with a K and an S inside it. I can't remember the name of the manufacturer, but that's a specific manufacturer that made some of these scabbards, a total of 300,000, so quite a few. So that's the markings you'll find on the first type. Second type, pretty much exactly the same, except you're going to have Waffenarts and maybe serial numbers as well. And then the third type, instead of our CSZ down here, it's just going to be a DOT. And that's pretty much it. There's probably a couple other markings I've missed. I was a little bit rushed in the preparation for this video. I didn't get the usual amount of time I had to really do a deep dive, but there's not too much to it. Those are the 3 general rules for identifying which of the 3 types you have. Yeah. Other than that, guys, if you have anything further to add to what I've said, or if I've made any grievous errors, please comment below. I'd love to hear from you. It'll help everyone who's watching these videos in the future. If you enjoy the video, please feel free to hit the like button, because it helps with the algorithm and helps me stretch my videos a little bit further, and yeah, helps them get a little bit more views. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.